Great share, man. That's awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Lonnie. I'm a real alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 2nd, 2019. That put me at 4 years this month. That includes holidays and weekends, man. I have a sponsor. My sponsor is Doug W. He's from Ontario, Canada, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. I do sponsor a couple people. Let's start. I'm going to try to make it real quick because I really want to talk about the last 4 years of my recovery. Qualified myself as an alcoholic. At 11 years old, I had my first drink. I think I drank half, if not more, of that bottle until I threw up and passed out. Because I felt that, that was it. I felt the magic. I felt that release. That was my peace. That was my comfort, you know. By the age of 13, I was working at this horse ranch in Carecrow, and the owners went out of town. And so the older guys, they decided to throw a party, right? We had about 3 or 4 of us that were 13, 14, 15 years old. But we showed up at this party, man. Let me tell you, it was one of these parties. They had stuff there that I had never seen before, right? And so we were getting into it, man. We were doing our business. And, man, there was this blonde. She had some white shorts on. Like, I love me some white shorts. So I decided to reach out, get a handful of white shorts, right? Well, she slapped every little piss out of me. And one of the older guys came by. He said, Lonnie, man, he said, you can't be grabbing on the women like that. He said, you need to sit your ass down. And so, I mean, I'm drinking faster and I'm drinking heavier than anybody there. And this is at 13, and I'm doing whatever pill or whatever powder they had. And so I'm sitting in this chair, man, and I'm rocking. I'm looking out the window. Next thing you know, I see this donkey going through the pasture with my bicycle. So, and I run out there, man. I catch this donkey. The halter had got caught in the handlebars or some kind of shit. And so the guys came running out there with me, and we got the bike all fixed up. And I'm like, damn, that was fucking weird. Well, the sun was fixing to go down, and they're like, Lonnie, bro, you had enough. You need to go. Right? And I did, because like I said, I drank harder and I drank faster than everybody there. And so I got on that little bicycle, man. I started going down that gravel road, and I ended up in the ditch before I got to the main road, right? And I'm in that ditch, and I'm paralyzed, bro. I'm awake, but it's like I can't fucking move. And I could hear the people starting to leave the party, and nobody's stopping, right? Finally, the last people to leave saw me, picked me up, put me next to this old lady's house under a tree. She ended up getting me home the next morning. But anyway, the moral of that story is that should have been a precursor to my whole drinking career. I drank faster and harder than everybody. Some woman was always fighting with me because I was out of control. Some jackass was trying to steal something from me. And I wrecked every fucking thing I drove. And that was it. From 13 years old until 4 years ago, that's my drinking career. Now, did that make me alcoholic? Those circumstances of my drinking? No. By the time I was 14, I was in a treatment center. I went to Cyprus. They let me out because a friend of mine was in a car accident, drinking and driving accident, and me and his brother drank and smoked weed at the funeral. I was not deterred by somebody else's death. I was a drunk, and we were going to drink, and that's what we did. By 17, I joined the military, man. That was a good move. My 17th birthday on the day. I had a 2-year contract. Got out of basic training in AIT with honors. I'm talking about basic training. I graduated number 10 out of the whole battalion. I was one of the first 10 to walk across the stage. AIT, I graduated number 2. I was clean, I was sober, and I was about it. That was my career. They sent me to Germany. Long story short, you turn this coon ass loose in Germany at 17 years old, with all the good stuff they got going on over there, I was ruined. I was ruined. I did not make those 2 years. I made 23 months. They kicked me out 1 month left before I got an honorable discharge. Our whole platoon was so bad, the captain was going to make an example out of somebody. So I was that example. I got out. I came back home, man. I ended up marrying the high school sweetheart thing. And 6 months later, me and her is going through a divorce. I go to treatment. I got an uncle telling me, Lonnie, he said, why don't you come to one of these meetings with me? I said, what y'all do at those meetings? He said, we talk about how we don't drink no more. I said, why the fuck y'all want to do that, man? So I went to the meeting, man. I was going through this divorce. I was having a hard time. So I ended up going to treatment, man. I got out, and about 2 or 3 weeks later, I was like, nobody's going to tell me I can't have a glass of wine with my wife, right? So that was a little relapse. It got real bad. Me and her really split up. And I started doing AA for real. Started going to meetings almost every day. Started getting sponsors. Really wanted this thing. And I tried hard for 2.5 years, man. 2.5 years, I could not get longer than 6 months sobriety. 2 months here, 3 months there. I would have sponsors, man. I would do what the sponsors tell me to say. Read page 449. But I go to 449, read this or read that. And I just couldn't get it, man. I couldn't get it. Until finally, long story short, I end up in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm on my way to California to make Clancy Emerson my sponsor. Because I'd heard some speaker tapes from Clancy, and somebody had to get me sober. I was 2.5 years in AA, and I couldn't get it. So I was driving from Billings, Montana, drunk, going to California. I break down in Vegas, of all places. Now, let me make a long story short again. I just so happened to run into a group over there where they were sponsored by somebody who helped write the big book. And that was a turning point in my drinking career. I realized that I needed somebody to teach me this book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I realized I needed somebody to sit down with me and help me understand what I needed to do. And the old boy, he told me point blank, he said, I know what your problem is. He said, you know about God. He said, you just don't know God. He said, if you want to know God, we'll go to this book. And I was like, cool, you know. And so we went to the book, man, and let me tell you, I ended up living with what became my sponsor. This lady had, 30 some odd years at that time, 38, I think. But she always had a house full of drunks, man. But I lived with her for almost 3 years, and we lived Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was the best experience I ever had in my life. Well, I decided to come back home, man. I was going to get back with this wife that we had got almost divorced, and I was going to carry the message to Lafayette, Louisiana, and this sponsor at the time, she looked at me, she says, you ain't ready. And my heart sunk. I knew she was right. She said, you ain't ready. And so I convinced myself I was ready. And so I broke out on my own. I came back home to Lafayette, Louisiana. Let me make a long story short. I ended up getting in an AA marriage. I pissed off a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I caught a resentment against Alcoholics Anonymous, and I decided y'all weren't spiritual enough for me, so I was just going to do church, and me and this little church family was going to do our thing. Well, 7 years later, I'm going through a divorce. And so with almost 7 years sobriety, man, I'm going through an AA divorce, and I had convinced myself that I knew my character defects so well. I convinced myself that if I just wouldn't operate in my character defects, I could drink like a gentleman. I didn't know I was a real alcoholic. I didn't know what a real alcoholic was up until 4 years ago. I thought I drank too much. That's what I thought. I thought I was crazy. I thought I had some emotional and mental problems. And that if I watched for my character defects, that was my whole problem. So if I could just get my character defects straight and live like a decent, good human being, then I should be able to drink. That relapse happened somewhere around 99, and I did not sober up until 4 years ago. And in those 20 some odd years, there was a divorce, there was multiple jail trips, there was a vehicular homicide where I killed a man. I ended up going to prison. I did 9 years on a 10-year sentence because every time they would let me out, I could not make parole. I always had a drinking and driving incident that would put me back in prison. The last time I got out was 10, excuse me. I've been sick for a year, y'all, excuse me. Last time I got out was about 12 years ago. And I had good intentions, man. I had real good intentions. I was back in the church. Didn't want nothing to do with AA, but I was going to kind of do some church stuff. And my neighbors, They were doctors, lawyers, worked for the sheriff's department. They had a camp right next to mine. And if I just hung out with them, man, if I just drank with them, then I would be all right. Well, after 6 months of that, they don't have nothing to do with me. Thank you, brother. So, excuse me. Thanks. So anyway, so for the next few years after I got out of prison, man, I still copped this resentment against AA. I had a resentment against all spiritual matters, because in that 20-some-odd year relapse, I had tried meditation. I had tried some church stuff. I had tried everything from Christianity to Satanism. I was looking for power. I wanted... You sure? All right. He's passing out for me. See what a good friend that is, man? So anyway, so I got out of prison, man, and I went back to drinking, and until April 2nd, 2019, I lived a lifestyle of a drunk. Best thing I ever did was I went to welding school while I was in prison. So for about 10 years, I worked as a welder. I made big money, and I partied hard. And towards the end of my drinking, it got so bad to where I don't remember eating for months. I don't know how I survived. I drank from the recliner to bed, from the recliner to bed, from the recliner to bed, and go to the store, get some more. From the recliner to bed. That was it. From wake up till pass out, it was drink. That's all I could do. And I knew I was dying, guys. I knew I was killing myself. One day I used the bathroom on myself, and I wasn't even trying to pass gas. I was wide awake, and I knew that my body was just physically giving out. Just physically giving out. I'd already been to the doctor twice for severe pancreatitis, and I had learned that whenever you start losing bodily functions, your body is done. And so I thought, what am I going to do to sober up? What am I going to do to sober up? I could go offshore, man. I could get a job on the workboats, stay offshore for a while, sober up. But I knew the minute I come back in, I would be gone. You know, I played that game before. And so I said, man, I got to get myself in a detox. I got to find me a treatment center. And I wasn't thinking coming back to AA. I don't have nothing to do with no spirituality no more. I just wanted to get in a safe spot so I could detox. So I checked myself into UMC. I was there for about 10 days. Medicaid would not cover me going to treatment. We had just filed the paperwork, and so they had to kick me out. And I cried like a baby, man. After 10 days, I still wanted to drink so bad. I said, y'all don't understand. I said, I cannot leave here, go to an AA meeting and stay sober. I said, I'm going to drink when I leave here. And I did. I still had that craving so bad. That night, I'm drinking my fifth, and I'm getting really blitzed. And I guess about 2 or 3 in the morning, I end up on some mental health hotline. And they said, man, they said, go back to the emergency room and just tell them that you want to kill yourself or somebody else. They got to put you somewhere. Even whether you got insurance or not, they could put you somewhere. I was like, oh, man, that's a light bulb moment for me. I'm like, fucking ain't right on, man. so I grabbed my fifth. I go driving back to town. I live in Beulah Road. So I'm driving back to town. Walk in, talk about I'm gonna kill my neighbor. I didn't want to tell him I was suicidal. I didn't want to be in that straitjacket and shit. So I told him I was gonna kill my neighbor, man. I even had a little flashback from prison. I got in a fight with some of the techs that were there. They gave me the booty juice and all the good stuff, man. So they got me to Vermilion Behavioral Health, and I told that nurse, man, so I think I'm in the wrong place. Now I could hear somebody hollering about Jesus, and somebody was fussing with their rabbit, and there was all kind of shit going on, and I was like, oh, no. And they said, look, we're going to do the intake, we're going to move you to the south side. There's some general population at the south side, you'll be all right. Well, I get to the south side, I hear the same shit, right? Man, somebody fighting with the techs, there's this kind of hollering going on, all these people acting crazy. What the fuck? So I told her, I said, I'm in the wrong spot, man. I don't want to be here. She said, Mr. Stoots, you have to stay. You have to stay for so many hours. Man, by the third day there, I was singing karaoke. I was doing my coloring. I was into that shit. You know why? Because I was sober. I was 3 days sober. I hadn't been 3 days sober since I got out of prison. I was sober and I was safe from alcohol. They could have kept me there the rest of my life. I didn't give a shit. I was sober and I was safe from alcohol. So the next 10 minutes, 4 years of sobriety, they got my Medicaid straight. I got the treatment. I started reading the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Y'all know that with 4 years sobriety, these people wrote this book? I find that kind of a coincidence. I'm still trying to figure this book out. But with 4 years sobriety, these 100 people wrote a program of action that has helped millions of people recover who were just as bad as I was, if not worse. They tell the story of one guy in there, in the doctor's opinion, he had pathological deterioration. Doctors didn't think they could help him. Alcoholics Anonymous did. And so what I did was I started reading this book again, man. And this is the book I got in 1988, my first treatment center. Somehow it lasted through all these years and it ended up back in my house. It was there when I got a treatment. But I started reading the big book again of treatment. And like in the doctor's opinion, he talks about a guy who became sold on the ideas contained in this book. And that's what I got sold on when I was in treatment. I got sold on the ideas contained in this book, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I gave up my resentment against Alcoholics Anonymous and all these people that had pissed me off in the past. Because I knew Alcoholics Anonymous worked, I experienced it for 7 years myself. I have seen others experience great things with this book. I knew that something had to change between me and the fellowship. And so I committed to this book and I committed to these steps. I got out of treatment. Probably got about 5 minutes left. I got out of treatment. Within 3 months, I'm back at that same detox telling my story. At 9 months sobriety, I'm helping a friend start a sober house. I made a 1 year commitment to that and I completed that 1 year commitment. It's been service work, it's been service work, it's been service work, it's been step work, it's been step work, it's been step work. My first year, man, I think I went completely through the steps. I did 3 thorough inventories my first year with different sponsors. Reason was because when I got to step 10 during the book study one time, it said that we would no longer be fighting temptation, that we would no longer be fighting alcohol, that the problem would have been removed. And I was still avoiding temptation. I wasn't going to certain stores. I wasn't going certain places. I was scared if I missed a meeting, I would drink. I was scared if I didn't do this, I would drink. I was scared to relapse. So, so I grabbed a new sponsor. We went through the steps again. And like my man said, at that time, during the 7th step was when that obsession was removed. And I walked out of there and I felt safe. I felt safe from alcohol, that the obsession to drink was lifted. And the reason I felt safe is because these 12 steps has shown me how to find peace with God, no matter what. And there's another thing I did different was I actually practice these steps today. I actually wake up in the morning, do morning meditation like the book said. I do my nightly inventory like the book says. I don't miss it because I missed it before and I end up on a 22-year relapse. So today, I follow what the book says to the best of my ability, and I find peace. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous for sobriety this time. It wasn't to get on my feet. It wasn't to get a woman. It wasn't to get the old woman back. It was for sobriety. Because that's the only thing that this book promised me was some internal peace so that I could stay sober. And there's been some good times. There's been some bad times. For the most part, it's been good for the last year. Even with my sickness, it's still been good because I got active online. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm turning into kind of a big thing online. But no, online AA saved my ass. But anyway, I just want to encourage the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is where I found my peace. That's where I made a connection with God. That's where I learned to stay out of this spiritual make-believe that the family afterwards talks about. Was to have a practical program of action that I can do daily. I learned how to do steps 1 through 9. I repeat those steps daily with 10 and 11, and I carry this message of Alcoholics Anonymous. But that's all, guys. Sorry for the hoarseness and everything going on, but appreciate y'all, and I'm glad y'all are here for me. And I lost my resentments against y'all people.